As someone that's never really delved too deep into Chinese mythology, playing Wukong was a super dope experience, both visually and conceptually. Learning more about what made Sun Wukong such a renowned figure and how difficult it was for him to even be able to reach and attain Buddhahood made me enjoy the game even more as a whole. I'll be splitting this review into a few categories, then give my overall thoughts on the game as a whole package, starting with the story. So, as I mentioned earlier, I've never really known what the story of Journey to the West was about, besides just having the Monkey King Wukong being the prominent figure. So, playing through this game was an amazing experience because the story was super easy to follow and the cutscenes were all super cool as you progress through the game, and they just kept getting better leading up to the climax and the ending of the game. So after every chapter, there's around a 5-minute or so animated short, which are all beautifully created and go more into the backstory of the prominent characters of the story. Now, I don't want to go too deep into the story because I'd like to try and keep this review as spoiler-free as possible so people that do end up playing the game can enjoy it for themselves. But if you don't know the whole story of Journey to the West, or even if you do, this is an amazing adaptation of the story as a whole. Now on to the gameplay. So, in my opinion, the gameplay is fairly simple, yet it has some nuance and depth to it. On the surface, it's just press square around 4 or 5 times to do a light basic combo, and occasionally you'd press triangle to release a charged heavy attack. There is also a dodge, sort of similar to most Souls-like that people are familiar with, but the difference when it comes to this game is that you can chain your dodge up to 3 times if you need to create even more distance, as well as a perfect dodge mechanic. There are a decent amount of spells that you unlock throughout playing the game, but I found myself mainly just using the same 3 or 4 spells and not really branching out too much since I had the most fun using those that I was using. Going back to the heavy attacks though, there are also a total of 3 stances you have, the first being Smash Stance, which is exactly what it sounds like. Wukong will use his staff to jump and smash his opponent with his staff. The second stance is the Pillar Stance, which is also exactly what it sounds like. Wukong will use his staff as a makeshift pillar and he can perch on it to avoid some attacks and then retaliate against his opponent. Me personally, I didn't really use this stance too much since I enjoyed using Smash Stance and the third stance, which is called Thrust Stance. This stance is a little more unique, but still relatively simple like the other 2 stances, but Wukong is able to elongate his staff to reach enemies from afar, and it sort of acts as like a pseudo spear with some attacks as well, hence the name Thrust. All of these stances have upgrades, which leads me into the next part of the gameplay topic, which is the skill tree of the game. There's tons of things you're able to upgrade here, whether you just want to upgrade your basic stats like your HP, your mana, your stamina, or even your stances and spells. Unlike your typical Souls-like game, you just gain XP from killing enemies and use what the game calls sparks to upgrade yourself. Also, unlike typical Souls-like games, whenever you die, you don't have to go back to your death spot and pick up your souls, which is called will in this game. Instead, you use your will to purchase things such as materials for crafting your armor and weapons, or even your medicine. Which takes me to the final thing that I enjoyed as a break from normal Souls-like fashion, which is instead of exploring the world and discovering your gear and weapons from enemies that you've killed or from the environment, as you progress through the game and kill certain bosses, you end up unlocking the ability to craft certain weapons and armor, and I don't want to go too deep into that. Like I said, I'm trying to keep this spoiler-free as possible. So now onto the level design. So this game is divided into a chapter system where every chapter is a specific setting and level setting, such as a luscious green forest or a snowy mountain and much more. Overall, the levels are super easy to traverse and figure out where you're supposed to go to progress through the main story. However, there is a lot of exploration you're able to do. When it comes to exploration, it's mostly exploring to find new materials or mini-bosses, but there are secret areas in every chapter as well, which adds more bosses and a nice amount of extra lore for certain characters in the story. These secret areas aren't the easiest to find, so if you ever get stuck, don't feel bad if you have to look up how to discover and find it. I myself got stuck on trying to find 2 of the secret areas in the game, so don't feel bad. Overall, the level design is great in my opinion. Now onto the final part of my review for Black Myth Wukong. So this game is a complete package. The gameplay is surprisingly fun, and I never found myself getting bored while playing. The exploration and the level designs are also great, and the story is phenomenal alongside those chapter ending animations. I played the game for around 36 hours and beat almost all the bosses in the game. There were some I missed because I didn't explore every nook and cranny, and during my whole playthrough I only ever encountered 1 bug. The game runs super smooth, and I don't have a super high-end PC either, so even those that don't have a super high-end PC can run it, or even for those people that have to play on console, it's a totally viable option. My overall thoughts on Black Myth Wukong is I highly recommend playing this game, or at the very least, watching a full playthrough whether it's on Twitch or YouTube. And that's going to be the end of my thoughts on this review video for Black Myth Wukong. The next game I do plan on playing and giving a review for will be Wukong, since I have yet to play that game. And if there's any feedback, please leave me a comment, because I'd love to see what else I can improve on when I'm making these videos, since this is my first time making one of these as well. And finally, if you'd like to see me playing any of these games before I make these review videos, I do stream on Twitch, and I'll leave my channel in the description. So see you in the next review. Peace!